Oh, this has to be tricky to put. That ain't gonna work, fool. Let's see here. Hey, Jenny. I was actually just setting myself up with the math problem to get warmed up, but the thing that I had set up fell over. So now I'm looking like a fool, scrambling for this. Okay. I think you can see that, can't you? You know the answer? Jenny, do you know the answer? Okay, yeah, you can see that. Okay. I'm going to get started here in just a second, but that's just my opening question for all the brainiacs out there. I'm gonna be out here live streaming too. All right, so I don't know. We'll see if anybody is hobbled in here. Brat, brat. All right, we got 17 people arguing over the math problem. Hopefully, there is no multiplication sign there. Oh, not that again. You'll excuse me here. I had these rents. Brandon F. and Mitchell. I'm going to interact more with the chat today than I usually do. Mr. Osgood. Jeff hates pigs. Just K. Good evening. As long as I don't recognize you, but if you behave for just a short while, I will hook you up with a wrench and you can hook up with everybody else here. Jenny. Good to see you as always. I'm going to be talking about some of the cryptids that are out there. Just keep this in your head, or picture this in your head. They're out there right now, living their lives all over the place. They don't just exist when we go out there and see them. They have their own intelligence and make their own realities just like we do, I'm sure, to some extent. And they're out there right now. Different cryptid creatures that you have been told do not exist, but that is a lie because it doesn't mesh with the religious or the scientific story that we're told. But before you get overly skeptical on me, just understand or just think about how many lies you've been told. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that in a second, but just for now, I had these freaking runts and I had these rents, and now I've got a couple of Reese's peanut butter cups that I'm going to consume before I get fully going. Those runs are good. Um, so, actually, I guess I can do both. I guess I can multitask here. um, yeah, I'm in a much better mood. God, I was in a foul mood since I went to the DMV yesterday. So foul. The DMV is foul. I don't even want to get my license. I totally believe that we have the right to travel, but uh, I'm literally one of the safest drivers in the world just because I drove around with so much rugs in my car for so many years that I did not want to risk getting pulled over for any reason. So I follow all of the traffic laws very closely. So I'm one of the safest drivers that you'll ever meet. How many lies I've been told you mean today? Yeah, exactly. Especially, I should have said how many lies you've been told by the school system and the, hey dad, by the way, the school system and the scientific community, the experts, the authorities. Actually, the authorities is pretty much a good catch-all phrase for it all. You've been told so many lies, so many things that are just, well, just look at this 5 angles of video footage that we have on this whatever execution or whatever you, or if you call it justified, I don't, whatever. But we got 5 angles on what happened, and we know what happened, and they'll still just get up and lie to our face, even with that nowadays. So, you know, you've been lied to about a lot of stuff. Is my point. Uh the and these, you know, there's a lot of people, a lot more people than you would think in these communities. There's literally so many people out now looking for cryptids, with cryptid websites, with Facebook pages, with YouTube accounts, you name it. There are millions and millions and millions and millions of people now, largely thanks to a combination of experience that they've had or that someone they know has had, and social media, of course, the internet. The internet being, of course, the main factor, because there's a lot more people out there who now understand that these things. Have I heard of uprising Congressman Kit Fisto? I'm pretty sure Kit Fisto was unalived at the end of the Clone Wars, or near the middle of the Clone Wars, so he can't possibly be an upcoming congressman. Otherwise, I would totally vote for him. I can't remember who unalived him, if it was Count Duke. No, it wasn't Count Dooku. I think it might have been his own clone troopers. Boy, I'm forgetting. Can you tell me who can tell me who unalived Kit Fisto? Oh no, never mind. I know the answer to that. Of course I know the answer to that. It was Palpatine, that's right. Whenever the 4 Jedi came to arrest him, and he surprised them with his lightsaber, and just basically, I don't know, that scene was one of the worst in that movie, which I like that movie. Of the first 3, that's the only one that I really do like. These aren't the drones you're looking for. Yeah, you agree? Okay. It's a little bit long and drawn out, but it's a very good movie nonetheless, especially comparative to the other 2. But I actually like it quite a bit all around. And I like where the story ended up going, because it's so much a parody of what's going on, where you've got one person or one interest, one group of people. You know, in the movie, it could be one Sith master, but in real life, you're going to have families and things like that. But there's one interest that's basically controlling both sides and playing both sides, making war for profit, because that's what more profitable thing could they do than make war? And it also cuts down on the number of people on the planet and stresses the resources less. So they're all for it. And they're just, in the meantime, both sides are looking to these same villains for help, for an answer, and the answer that we're getting is more tyranny. Where am I from? I'm from Portland, Oregon. Actually, I'm from Denver, Colorado, if you want to know where I was born, but I'm in Portland, Oregon. Um, Add a Q&A sticker and mute. Okay, I will. I'm going to try that for once. A movie show that everybody loves, but I don't. Or that you don't. What do I do here? Oh. Answer will appear. What? I don't get this. How do I do this? Oh, I see. Start Q&A. Okay. You have an aunt here in Portland? In Northeast, Southeast? I'm in Northeast. You don't got to tell me where she is, but I'll tell you, I'm in Northeast Portland in the Wilshire, Alameda neighborhood, basically. Pretty much anybody could. I've doxed myself enough that it doesn't really even matter. Hey, Dahlia. So, yeah, that's that. But I got off sidetracked there by that comment. I said I was going to interact with the chat more, though, so I'll let it go a little bit where it's going to go. But I was talking about the lies that you've been told and try not to be so skeptical that these cryptid creatures are out there, because the number of people who are describing the same exact things, not, and this is besides the video and photo evidence, of which there is a ton. KKR has been surprised to see some of what I've showed him, what I've sent him, as far as like Sasquatch recordings that analysts have gone over and they just cannot prove are fake, and they've gone over and over them, and there's about 5 weird things about them that literally mean they can't be fake, but people still just won't make that pronunciation, because it's just bizarre, because they put so much weight in their belief that the things don't exist that it will outweigh a whole ton of proof just naturally in their mind. They don't even really think about this whole what's going on with it. A whole bunch of proof, you know, these videos, even some of these photographs, but more of the videos are the far better proof, where you've got the full subject visible and they're moving and they have non-human body ratios. They cannot be people in costumes. So besides all that, the number of people who have seen these things and are describing the same exact things, it's impossible. Now, you got to realize too, this same thing with these same descriptions has been going on before the internet began and before there was mass communication and mass media. And so most of the people who ever made these claims had never heard of anyone else's claims. A lot of these things come from files of individuals who are now deceased, and either left these files to someone else or left them in a storage unit and someone found them or whatever. And it turns out there's a lot more people who've been out studying these things, and it makes sense, because when you see one for yourself and you're seeing something that you've always been told does not exist, it's going to mess with your head. And about a lot of these people, a lot of folks who this happens to, who these encounters happen to, they end up drinking themselves to unalived, or some other vice to unalived, or they just unalive themselves. It's the number of people who've seen these things and then have turned around and had that happen is just unbelievable. It's too big to ignore statistically. So it's obviously a heavy thing. Now then you've got another percentage of people who go out and study these things and interview other people who've seen them and try to get some answers and some confirmation. But a lot of those folks in the past, because they didn't want to lose their jobs, they didn't want to be called crazy, blah 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 blah, they didn't say anything to the people they know or other people, or they only said things to certain people. And so we've got a whole lot of these files going back a long time, and they're all consistent, and we're constantly finding historical newspaper articles and all kinds of historical documents where they talk about these things, and they are consistent. It's not, even if you haven't seen one, it's easy enough for you to understand. You've got to buck all of your previous programming, all of that weight that you give to the idea that these things can't or don't exist, which is false, I'll tell you, but regardless, you have no reason to put any weight behind it. You have no proof that it's false. Just the fact you haven't seen a lot of countries in the world, but they're not false either. I mean, maybe in some quantum sense you could start arguing things like that, but you know what I mean. And so uh, you put too much weight in that, and so you've got to drop that because you don't have any legitimate foundation for that. That's wrong. That's not the way that you want to conduct your life or your intelligence. Uh, and so once you get rid of that, and you really start looking again at how much proof there is, especially of Sasquatch, it's just endless with that. There's just anyone who doubts that at this point is either so disconnected from anybody involved in the subject and any talk about it or whatever, and just hasn't isn't exposed, or they're just the type of person who lives their life in denial about things that they don't want to be real or that they've been told or brainwashed or socialized or whatever you want to think of it as into believing. They can't let go of that. They put all this faith in what their teachers and their parents told them, and it's not a good way to live your life. And it's your conclusions are not going to be true. Look at see people. Well, we've got a dog park here behind us, and yet people just can't wait. They can't freaking wait to let their dog off the leash. They got to do it here. Let their dog run on our yard, piss on our yard, poop on our yard. A lot of times, I don't know how many dogs I've seen where what this guy's doing, where the poor dog has run out in the street after a cat or something and got hit. That's happened too many times here, and I don't ever want to see it again. Um, yeah, I wish people would put a frickin' leash on. I should have spoke louder. I tend to be kind of a semi-polite person, although I can tell I could take that dude easy. Anyways, so you don't want to live your life and make decisions that way. These things are out there. Don't doubt it. Don't doubt it for a second. And so, what's out there? Well, according to the consistent reports of people going back hundreds of years in many cases, you've got a number of things. You've got the most easily believable ones, the Sasquatch. A lot of people can figure out a way to justify that on their mind as some kind of ape that just got here somehow or whatever. That's not what it is. But that's not what the DNA shows, and that's not what they look like generally. You know, they tend to, as according to reports and videos and photographs, they can look anywhere from very gorilla-like to almost 100% human. And everything in between. Most of the ones that look most human, they have, especially in the South, they constantly have traits that make them look, and I'm sorry to use this term, but you know, retarded, or they have some kind of genetic problem, um, Down syndrome, whatever, maybe what my sister has, something. They got something, and that's not known if that's just the way they look, because they don't seem to be act like they are necessarily, but they'll just look that way. But it's not known whether that's from inbreeding, which there are a lot of 3 and 4 toed ones down there, and that's thought to be from inbreeding. I don't know why that would necessarily be, because there's a lot of them in those southern states and those swamps and whatnot. It's a great place for them. But anyways, yeah, the ones in those areas now, the ones in the Pacific Northwest, they tend to look more like Native Americans. Very much like Native Americans. Um, Less apish in general, almost no apish, other than slightly larger, flatter noses than people and a longer upper lip and possibly a different forehead. Otherwise, they look like, you know, beautiful people, like beautiful Native American people almost. A lot of women especially are impressed with how handsome some Sasquatch are, especially out in the Pacific Northwest. Both their coat, their hair, and their features. A lot of them are like, "What? He was beautiful." Like, yeah, you'd just be surprised how often you hear that from women, but even men too. Um, Not necessarily saying the females are attractive, but just that they are a beautiful creature. Excuse me for, I'm just looking for something that I can't find here. My lighter. Oh, there it is. Okay. And so that's the main cryptid that you've got, and they're everywhere in North America, Mexico. It appears that there are hominins in South America. The questions, I'm not as educated about South American cryptids and maybe hominins. Their main cryptids down there are giant sloths and a couple of other mapinguaris, I think. Wait. Yeah, I think it's mapinguari. Excuse me. And I gotta take a drink. My throat. Oh my gosh. I just sneezed in my orange juice and blew it everywhere. Okay, I'm not drinking that. That was awful. Okay, at least I didn't do it to my Rockstar. And I hadn't poured my Rockstar in there yet, which I usually do. Thank goodness. I just sneezed. I mean, cough that friggin' cough/sneeze right into OJ. Yuck. I'm not drinking that. And so and so that's what you're made. They are all over North America, however, and the Eurasian continent, and that's no doubt about that. They also appear to be in Africa, India, every major archipelago on the planet. And there are even fairly credible reports from places like Hawaii. Now, how in the world the things would get to Hawaii, I don't know, unless some of them can move through portals, which there's a lot of consistent reports of people seeing things that makes it look like they're going into portals. However, that still wouldn't be clear what was happening. It may be that they're just entering a form of camouflage, which there are videos of what appear to be bipedal creatures that are in some kind of a transparent camouflage state. So there's more evidence that they could be moving into something like that. There's also a video. It's a fascinating video. Everybody on here who's interested in this and listening should all go watch. There's a guy named Bigfoot Tony, and he has a video called Sasquatch Blending in Plain Sight. And it's taken, I believe, in Florida. And there are a whole bunch of these Sasquatch right in front of the camera the whole time. And they're coming in and out of view, and you can watch it on the video. And there's just no way this could be faked. It's an older video. It's not the most high quality that you would hope for, but it's high quality enough and steady enough. And you can see these things coming in and out of not existence probably, but more likely a camouflage state. Which makes sense because they have their hairs that have been collected are hollow. They don't have a medulla inside of them, much the same as, or in the same way that we do. Theirs is the opposite of ours. We have medullas in like 9 out of 10 hairs. They have it in like 1 out of 10 or maybe less. And that's why DNA from their hair is difficult to get unless it's got follicles attached to it. Because that internal stuff of the hair that they don't have is a medulla, is where you get your genetic material for testing. Not from the just dead tube on the outside. Well, it's dead inside too, but whatever. You get my drift. It's got more biological material in there that they can get the DNA from. And that means that their hair's being hollow like that. They probably, if you look out on a field of green and on a sunny day, everything kind of washes together with green. And if you walk out in that area, you'll see that there are things there, especially like rock wall kind of things and stuff. But even dark-eyed objects, generally dark objects, and you'll see that they were washed out in green in your vision, although they were not green. They were just, being washed out in green by the sunny day and so that's one possible explanation for that. Or maybe they just have some kind of ability that we don't yet understand, just like a dolphin's sonar would have been something that looked like magic to us. Their ability to knock a fish out from a distance, it would look like something, magic to us. Hey, Monkey Man, hey, you get a wrench, buddy. I know you. Make sure to hook up with everybody here. Good to see you, buddy. I'm interacting with the chat a little bit more today. John P. Actually I stopped, I guess, because I didn't see John P. John P. Buddy, good to see you. And so, yeah, hollow hair. I was saying, oh yeah, and so it'd wash out, and you just, and that may be, or maybe they have the dolphin. Or I was saying, dolphins' ability would look magic to us before we understood sonar, as would many animal abilities, and so there's a possibility that that's the answer, or maybe they're basically magical or supernatural, although. It's also possible that supernatural is scientifically explainable and we just don't have that yet. Whatever. Because maybe the dolphin would have been called supernatural before, with its ability to knock a fish out from a distance without touching it. But whatever. So, whatever the reason, they appear to be able to do this. There's also videos of things like, there's Barb and Gabby. She's a researcher that has a dog named Gabby. Barb is. And she filmed, and there's a Thinker Thunker video about this, and I think there might be a Bigfoot Tony video about this too. But she filmed one of these creatures cloaked by accident. Basically, they had just stopped to have a chat, but in the background, you can see this thing is standing there, and it drops to all fours and runs off. And they're like, but it's cloaked. It's like the Predator almost in the Predator movies. And who knows, maybe that's not a Sasquatch, I don't know, because there are a lot more things out there. Believe it or not, we're going to get to much more fantastic things than Sasquatch, and this will probably take me more than one episode here. But, yeah, so they appear to have this ability. It's been caught on film. Maybe other creatures do too, I don't know. That's your main cryptid, though, around the world. And just to go on the record, I do believe in lake monsters. I don't know what they are. I don't believe in Loch Ness, or at least not anything that's permanently in there. It may be that people saw some strange sea creatures before that came up in there. More likely, honestly, and I almost hate myself for coming to this conclusion, but I have to be rational. There's a guy who put a book out with photographs of the loch, and there are so many visual illusions that occur in that terrain for some reason, and a lot of them look like the head of a plesiosaur sticking out of the water. It's amazing, these photographs. And when you also look at the Nessie reports, what you have is that a claymation movie with plesiosaurs that comes out. That same year, you've got your first two major sightings. I mean, that movie was so popular and all around the world and so revolutionary. Claymation sci-fi movie with claymation monsters. And it was so revolutionary around the world at the time that I like the old Sinbad movies. I love those, actually. I used to own them on VHS, and I watch them regularly. I'm going to look at the chat more, so I'm a jackass, I know it. Hey, Mr. Osgood. Oh, yeah. Oh, your brother Gigi from Florida has a skunk gate. I'd love to hear that. I don't know, John P., if you've ever gone on my channel and listened to it's kind of a lost account from West Virginia. Meaning, it used to be on YouTube, and I recorded it for a girlfriend of mine 15 years ago. And I just so happened to have it on this old computer of mine, this old, like, all-in-one that I busted out and tried to use one day. And so I decided to throw it on YouTube because it was no longer anywhere on YouTube. I couldn't find it online, actually. I found something that might have been it, but I wasn't sure if it was it, and I didn't want to pay. It was behind a paywall that I didn't want to pay for. So, I don't know. But it seems to be a lost account from West Virginia. And it was a sighting that happened in like 2001 or 2. I think 2. And the recording of the account was made in 2012. It's not a skunk ape. It's probably one of their relatives up north. A big, gigantic 10 or probably 10. I don't know how tall the one in that he describes in there is, but its head goes quite a bit above the laurel thicket, which is like 8 feet tall, and it's this humongous beast. He can't stress it enough. He's just, you'll hear it if you listen to it. And yeah, it's a really fascinating account. And he had unalived, unfortunately, its mate or its sister or what appeared to be a female, smaller friend or relative or girlfriend or whatever, because he was scared, because he just stumbled on these things. And you know, when you first listen to it, you kind of want to dislike the guy for what he did, but the more you think about it and listen to him, and I actually didn't record originally the whole end part where he droned on for about 30 minutes about his feelings about all that, unfortunately, so because I didn't think she would want to be interested in it. But it is, I wish I did have that part because it's interesting. But he mentions what he feels about it earlier in the account, and and it's he doesn't like it that he did it, but he also said in the same situation he believes he'd do it again in a heartbeat. The thing was close to him. It started grunting at him. He freaked out, and he's very experienced. You'll hear it if you listen to it. Anyways, I'd love to hear your friend's account. And I don't know if you can. Let me see. If you put it in there where I can find it, maybe. Well, I'll look here. Free spirit, hey. Okay, so I don't want to get too sidetracked with that, but yeah, the skunk apes, they're all over the South, and some people, they call them boogers, boogeymen, the boogeyman. Don't stay out late, the boogeyman will get you. That's about Sasquatch. And there's a little intermixing there with the dog man, which they have a lot of there as well. The rougarou, the dog man. I know that's a lot harder for people to swallow, the existence of the dog man. It took me years and years to accept it. Oh, piggy. Oh, darn, don't run, piggy. Apparently he's got somewhere important to be to back up one of his blue line buddies, I'm sure, against some grandma who's resisting, quote, resisting. Anyways. I was trying to throw my finger up, but I'm sure he couldn't see it. Sorry, I got sidetracked by that. So the dog man gets intermingled with the Sasquatch there. So rougarou, some people might tell you that's a Sasquatch down there. Other people might say, yeah, that's the dog man. But whatever the case, yeah, there are a lot of southern Sasquatch. They got different names for them everywhere. I can't remember where the Mogollon Rim is, but I know there's the Mogollon Monster. I think that's closer to New Mexico and Arizona. But anyways, whatever places in the South, there's that famous movie from the 70s. Oh boy, I could always tell you that, but most of you will know what I'm talking about. The creature from, Boggy Creek. Boggy Creek, that's the name of the movie. And yeah, so anywhere in the South, pretty much, in these rural towns, they understand that these things exist. They know they've been dealing with them as a dangerous predator and sometimes a nuisance animal that gets into the trash, or takes livestock, or tries to run people off property that they've just built their home on, or probably it was traditionally their land or whatever. And they have terrorized people out of their homes. And there's the siege from Honobia, which is in Oklahoma, Honobia. And that's a very interesting story. I'd encourage anybody to look up the siege at Honobia. And that's two brothers, brilliant architects. I think I mentioned this once before. And they moved into a place and their family got terrorized by these things. It took them a long time to figure out what was going on, and almost longer to accept it because they didn't believe in these things at first. They ended up shooting one, and that's an interesting story about what happens then, et cetera, et cetera. So that's your first one, is your Bigfoot. And then moving on, I had gone to lake monsters, and lake monsters, I don't believe that Nessie is real. I was talking about how If you the reports, they happen to go perfectly with movie releases that happen over time. It's kind of interesting. And I don't like the mental gymnastics that most skeptics do when it comes to these subjects. I'm not really sure about these authors that I'm thinking of that made these books, if they are skeptics or not, but I can't fault their logic. And it's pretty interesting the way that these movies came out and then people started seeing something in the loch. And we all know now that at least the story is that that one Nessie photograph is a hoax. However, just because somebody comes out and says that they did a hoax doesn't mean they did a hoax. That's happened. That's something that's been confirmed to have happened many, many times in the cryptid world. From the very first, from supposedly the first Bigfoot tracks, which is just unbelievable horse crap. You can look back at 300 years worth of newspaper articles chock full of people finding their tracks. And, all kinds of weird explanations. The devil's tracks, the monkey man tracks, hairy man tracks, feral humans with giant feet, apparently is what they believed in some cases. And in fact, in some cases, like Jocko, they thought that they captured some of these things, and they thought that they had got people who'd gone feral because they just were ignorant and they didn't understand that in a single generation or two, people couldn't grow hair all over. But anyways, so these books, I don't know how these authors are, but their logic makes sense. And so I'm going to discount that there's anything in Loch Ness other than very likely some very large, almost unimaginably large, at least unseen before, large eels. And one of the reasons I say that is because of sonar returns, eyewitness accounts, and eyewitness accounts that are more reasonable than the plesiosaur type accounts, etc., etc. Where, and boat captains who've been on the water a long time and they've seen what appear to be large eels. And when eels are trapped in fresh water like that, they're not actually trapped because they can travel over land and over dams like they have there at the River Ness, or I don't know what kind of a causeway or a dam, but whatever. They can travel over all that to get to the Sargassian Sea, where eels all around the world converge to mate. From all around the world converge to mate. It's pretty fascinating. If you don't know anything about eels, you should look into them. It took a long time before people even figured out where eels, I'm talking in just recent years, did we figure out where these eels are going, and we still don't really know what goes on when they get there or how many of them go there. We just have a general idea, probably thanks to tracking devices of some kind or something, technology maybe, that they're going to the Sargasso Sea, because for a long time no one could figure out where they were all going. All around the world, they get out of the fresh water. If it's not connected to the ocean, then they'll walk across the land or whatever they have to get there. It's fascinating stuff. However, when one becomes trapped in a body of fresh water like that, pixelating, oh no. Is that any better? When one of them is stuck in fresh water for quite a long time, or when one is in fresh water, and it decides not to go with the rest of them to mate and reproduce, it will grow. It's suddenly its reproductive energy that it would have expelled goes into a massive growth spurt, and restrictors that can normally constrain its size are basically blown off the hinges, for lack of a more scientific way of putting it that people would understand. And so they can grow, and they do grow, to tremendous lengths. And there's plenty of credible eel fishermen and whatnot. They've been out in the weeds hunting eels or whatever, and one day they see one going by that's so big, and they try to jump out and grab it. It's just too big, and it overpowers them. Not to unalive them, but to get away. I mean, they could barely get their arms around it. That's how big sometimes. And even though we don't have a specimen of one that size, we only have specimens of the ones that we capture. So that's not, we don't really find specimens of them. Maybe in Loch Ness, just because they can fall down into that deep, cold bottom where there's no oxygen and no bacteria to eat them. But in most environments, you're not going to find any of their remains. So unless you've copped. So anyways, we know pretty well that these big eels exist, and some of them have been captured, but it was just before photography was common enough for them to get it, to film it. But anyway, so the one in there probably are giant eels in Loch Ness that account for some of the Loch Ness sightings. I think most of them, honestly, are illusions. There are a few videos that I can't really explain. I'm hesitant to put a whole hell of a ton of faith in them, though, after that one video was shot back in like the 70s or something, or the 80s, and Jet Propulsion Laboratories determined that it was an object 5 or 6 feet across and that was creating a wake, and it wasn't a boat. But sadly, it was a boat. Better technology allowed us to see better, but really once you see it better, and you take away that desire to hopefully see something fantastic, you can see that they should have got it right the first time, even with the information that they had. So I'm a little hesitant to put, don't think that I just put, undue validity levels on just any photograph or video that I see. However, I know quite a bit about what's possible and what's not possible, especially in the recent past. I am quickly losing my ability to tell you what's possible and what's not because of AI. But so far, even that's not a good analyst, not me, but it's gone beyond me, but it's where a good analyst like Fingerthunker, he can definitely tell you if something's AI or not. And I can almost always tell you. It's just a very rare one where it's a question. And so, yeah, I'm hesitant to put much stock even in the unexplained Loch Ness videos. It's such a large loch, and even though they're unexplained, there are possible explanations, like a whale coming in from the sea when the gates are. I don't want to put my faith in there being any kind of a creature there other than a large eel. However, I do believe in monsters. I believe in champ. I believe there's a whole family of champs, whatever champ is. I think it's a rare surviving animal of some kind. It's been caught on a very good piece of film that you actually have to go to view. However, a lot of people whose word in the field I trust have gone and viewed this video, and they say, and I've seen, you don't have to go and view it yourself to see the whole thing. You can see a clip of it, and it's even that clip is pretty fantastic. There's a very interesting picture, and I'm trying to remember which lake it's from. Now, these lake monsters exist. Thank you. Damn it. I hate that. My viewership just takes a freaking nosedive. So yeah, the lake monsters, they all follow along that same latitude line. And Loch Ness is along that line. I'll give it that. Maybe there is something in there, I don't know. But I do believe, like I said, in these other ones, and I think that latitudinal line is an indicator of a certain species biological latitudinal preference, not a latitude at which there's a tendency for people to make the same exact false sightings or reports. So I think it's more likely that that's a ecological niche. Whoa, one viewer. That's got to be a lie, because I see more people than that in the chat. Huh. Anyways, I don't care. I'm going to continue on. I don't care. I don't care if you don't like me. So they're all along the. So I believe in those ones, or in lake monsters in general. Don't get me wrong, I don't. There's a lot of very credible witnesses, and another thing I've noticed, kind of, I don't know if I noticed this after I kind of made a little bit of a determination in the negative about Loch Ness, or if I noticed it before, but they don't. As they do in other places, they're not as consistent. I've made my mind up about Loch Ness. No. And I haven't made my mind up, but I mean, which way I lean on it. And so that's enough probably for lake monsters. There's not a lot known about them, not much I can say. There's a fascinating video of a water skier, and the boat sees whatever's in the water in front of it. It's a large object. You can see this is all on video. And the boat sees this object, and the boat operator turns the boat and turns it off to go around this thing, or to stop in front of this creature. And what that does is it brings the water skier right on top of it. However, the thing, whatever it was, dived below the water. While I can't say if this is for sure, if this is Lake Champlain or another one, Ogopogo, Lake Okanagan. That's another big one where they definitely have something. I can't say which one of those it is, but you can find it easy enough. And it's funny that, yeah, the driver dumps the water skier right on top of the monster. And whatever it is, it goes below the water. And so it was something alive and very large. And it's one of the better pieces of footage. I mean, there's supposedly nothing in that. Oh, my sister's bus is up there. I don't know if you can see it from here. There's supposedly nothing in that place that would be big enough to account for something on video like that. And it's definitely not a school of fish or something silly like that. Neither is it a loggerhead, which loggerheads, they fool a lot of people. And I'll tell you what, I've been freaked the F out by one myself. Basically, where a log, it becomes waterlogged enough at one end that it sinks to the bottom, and just waterlogged enough at the other end that it has some buoyancy, just a little bit of buoyancy, but its own weight, the buoyancy will start to slowly lift it off the bottom, and its own weight will speed it up, and it'll break the surface depending on how much buoyancy it has, maybe violently or maybe just a tiny bit where you can barely see it. But I tell you, it makes a heck of a hazard for a prop motor, and I've hit one before, and I'm about to tell that story. It was so scary. And so that thing just keeps bobbing up and down with one end anchored to the bottom, especially in a river where it'll fight the current. The buoyancy will fight the current and lift that one end up, and then once it gets pushed a little bit underneath by the current, that's enough pressure to push it down. It reaches just a balance basically of saturation where it just slowly levers up and down and up and down. And that happens a lot. Another thing that happens is some trees, like the one inside of Crater Lake, it's a giant old wood tree, and it's just floating upside down there. And it has a similar type of buoyancy issue where it sinks. It's not known how far down it sinks. Maybe by now they might have measured it, but in the past they didn't know. And then it turns around and pops up, and it's like a monster coming out of the water. And I think they dated it's been in there like 200 years or something. So you do have that phenomenon to think about when you're thinking about lake monsters and river monsters. And so I was just going to tell the story. Basically, I was out on the Columbia River on my 28-foot smoker craft boat. I'm sorry, 14-foot smoker craft boat. I'm sorry, 13-foot smoker, Alaskan smoker craft. 13-foot Alaskan smoker craft with a 28 horsepower motor on it. Which for that boat, that's a pretty good sized motor. I could go pretty quick on glassy water, but that's largely because it's a lightweight boat. And so it really isn't enough of a boat for the Columbia River. The swells out there, when the wind picks up, it gets pretty hairy in a boat like that. Very much so, in fact. And so there were only certain days when it was pretty calm that we would go out there, especially anywhere upriver above Rooster Rock where the nude beach is. Anywhere above there. I know that Kurt's ears up the nude beach. Hey, Korea Donna, hey. Anywhere above there, and that's where we were. It's a lot rougher because you go around a bend there, and it just so happens that the wind blows down the gorge. That's kind of the very end of the gorge, which is not the Grand Canyon, but it rivals it, especially down here at the lower river, and not quite rivals it, but it's you can't see across it in a lot of places, or on a clear day you can mostly see across it, but it's a long ways across, trust me. And so anyways, it's rough, and we were up there, and I thought I was driving the boat, and I was with my father only, and we were going upriver as fast as we could to try to get to a spot to go walleye fishing. And I thought that my perception thought that I registered something in the water ahead of us, and I went to turn the boat, and there were other obstructions in the water and whatnot, and my father, who I could never do anything right in front of, had corrected me back into the same lane basically that I was in. And I said to him, there's something in the water up ahead. And he said, no there's not. And he's looking up there, and he's like, but there's stuff on the left and the right. And I was like, okay. Well, right when we get over this thing, right where we get over the spot where I saw what I thought I glimpsed this thing, the motor on the back flips up into the air while still in full throttle, and it wasn't just that, it was that there was a sharp bam, and the motor tried to come off of the transom. I mean, if it wouldn't have been tightly, because that log came floating up at a pretty good clip, because we watched it afterwards, and it came up at a pretty good clip and breached the surface pretty hard, and it came up just right at that moment, and it bent the crap out of the prop and the fin. It broke the fin off the bottom and bent the crap out of the prop. So as usual, I got to I told you so, my dad, although he wouldn't let me say so, but and he never learned a lesson from it. I sound so bitter. And anyways, yeah, so it was beyond frightening, because I didn't know I wasn't really a huge into cryptids at that point. In fact, I probably believed in the Loch Ness Monster and worried more about river monsters at that point than anything else, though. And I don't know, it was just extremely, extremely terrifying, because it didn't seem anything like, even when you hit a large log under the water, it doesn't usually quite go like that. It was such an upward slap, basically, or something. I don't know, it was different. It's bad when you hit something with the prop, the ground, or a rock, or a log, but it's usually not like that. The pop was so loud when it hit us. So anyways, that's one thing you got to think about with lake monsters, as well as logs and things like that. However, I nonetheless believe, and I saw a lake monster. Now, I didn't see a lake monster like the Loch Ness Monster, or Memphre, or whatever one is in the Great Okanagan Lake, or Champ from Lake Champlain. No, I saw what looked like an iguana, largely like an iguana, except for flatter on the top. Not flat like a salamander, however, and definitely very reptilian looking to me at the time. And it was about 25 feet down on a log in Scout Lake. The water is crystal clear, and you can see down there. And it crawled from the top side of the log to the bottom side of the log when I started, because I got startled by it, and I don't know, I just have fast reflexes, and even though it was far away, I kind of immediately took one kick towards the shore, and the commotion caused it to like crawl around the other side of the rock, or it was just or the log, or it was just ready to crawl around the other side of the log. I don't know, but there was a big sunken log like 30 feet down, and there was this thing. Now back in the day when I was a kid, it was easy to write it off as well. I just can't find the right information, and I kind of put it to the side for a long time. But since the internet came out and got bigger, I have looked and looked. There is nothing. The closest thing that could explain that would be a hellbender, but those are Japanese, and they don't look like this did. They are flatter, large. They can be as big as like a dog almost, but for one thing, they couldn't survive, I don't think, here in that environment. And for two, this thing was not that flat. These are real flat. They're called hellbenders because you can't hold on to them. Basically, they just wriggle and bend. And anyways, so I saw somewhat of a lake monster. I know I saw it. I know I didn't imagine it. I know I didn't dream it. I was there. I was in the water, so I wasn't asleep. Yeah, but I never seen any kind of a lake or river monster that I remember, at least, anywhere else in all my many hours on the water fishing. So whatever. And I'm gonna only go for a few more minutes here, so everybody start winding up, saying goodbye to each other. But you got another 10 minutes or so for me to get back to the house, so I'm gonna keep streaming until then. So I'm going to move on in part to the Dogman, which I've already touched on. I know these are hard to believe in. I tried to share episode, oh gosh, how am I going to, I think it's 190. I'm going to have to, I don't know, I'm going to go look at my page and see if I managed. I tried multiple times to share this episode that I wanted people to listen to, of this guy who had a Dogman experience. He had multiple of them in the end, but when he first called in, he'd only had one. But it was on his own property, so the things came back. And it's, if you listen to him, I mean, he's only one of tens of thousands of people that you can tell are sincere. I mean, who wakes up in the morning and says, I'm gonna go and call this radio show of these dumbasses who believe in these monsters, and I'm gonna make up this whole story, and I'm gonna tell it multiple times over the years, and I'm gonna make sure I'm consistent and write it all down and memorize. To what end? I mean, it happens. It's happened, but it's been so rare. Honestly, these hosts of these podcasts and YouTube channels, they, especially after they've been doing it for a while, they get very good at sniffing out people that are messing around. They know how to ask the same questions in different ways over time while they're questioning the person to get, and the type of answers will reveal whether someone's telling the truth or not. Whether they give the same answer to the same question in different words. And there's just a million little psychological tricks that they learn and use, and most of them, the successful ones, get very good at that. And so the vast majority of people that you can listen to on these shows are telling you the truth when it comes to cryptid sightings, when it comes to a lot of subjects. Now, I don't know when it comes to people who claim to be psychic, or there's a whole list of other things that I'm not sure. I don't know. I know they can't all be telling the truth because they're not consistent like the, you know, in the way that the cryptid ones are in general, although a few of them are kind of consistent with each other, but whatever. I'm not saying believe everybody about everything. Use your judgment, but there's a whole lot of people that are clearly traumatized when they tell their stories. They're traumatized by their experience, and many times they're in groups when they have them, and everybody's telling the same traumatic experience. Some of them may have unalived themselves in years afterwards because they couldn't handle it. Other ones might have started studying these creatures or out looking for other people who've seen them, just so they can try to reconcile what's happened to them or what they've seen. Other people just shut up about it and don't ever want to talk about it or think about it again. That seems to be the majority of people. And as far as people who do come out and talk about these things, you're talking about, I'm sure that the number is going up. But in the past, when there was such a stigma around it and you could lose your job, your standing in the neighborhood, I mean, literally crazy stuff like people start egging your house and calling you the crazy because they don't want to. This is a subject they don't want to be real. So it's very, especially if you're in a rural area or whatever, and somebody starts saying, hey, this is happening on my property. A lot of times they'll get backlash even from people who've seen the things and know there's something odd up, because it's just very, okay, I know you, Usama, I think. Okay, I'm gonna risk it. Oh, yeah, I know you. Okay. So you can go around and hook up with everybody, buddy. Good to see you. I've watched that show. I've never watched Stranger Things. Everybody who thinks I should watch Stranger Things, let me know. If you've watched it, tell me yes or no. Should I watch Stranger Things? I mean, is it really worth my time? And I'll just quickly preface that by telling you that I don't have a lot of tolerance. You can ask KKR. I don't have a lot of tolerance for TV shows and movies and Hollywood stuff and whatnot, blah, 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 because I pretty much always know what's going to happen. I didn't know how to word that any other way. You can ask him. I mean, yeah. So it just ends up being bore for me and a disappointment most of the times. When something surprises me, that's when I really love it and appreciate it. So that would be things like The Leftovers. Gosh, I can't name a lot of them. Game of Thrones was pretty good, although I like the books a little better. I don't know. Who cares what I like? But I just wonder, should I watch Stranger Things? Oh, I liked Farscape. Maybe if that'll give anybody an idea, though, actually, I should tell you. I liked Farscape quite a bit. Star Wars, I'm a big Star Wars fan, of course. The original 3 movies being by far superior to any of the other movies. And then the Clone Wars cartoons being probably the best of all of them. And Rogue One's a very good movie. Han Solo wasn't that great. There's a couple of them now that aren't too hot on my list, but whatever. I didn't really like the way that Disney took it. You know, actually, that's going to be a subject that I'm going to cover here one of these days coming up, is the difference between what the real story was that was being written in books by brilliant authors for 20-something years before George went back into the prequel, what that storyline was. And all of those had to be carefully synced up. You couldn't have conflicting information in like 20-something years worth of books. Now they call that the legend whatever reality. And then there's the new, what I don't even remember what they call the more updated Disney version. But I'm going to talk about the differences between what happened. It was still, the similarities really quick is that it was still Han and Leah's son who turned bad in both of them. But I'm not going to tell the other differences. There's a lot of them, including his name. But I'll go over that in an upcoming video, just to quickly say. So anyways, those are the things I like. Should I watch Stranger Things? That's the big question. I don't see any answers. I hate needles, but I let you stab me. Who are you talking to? Free Spirit? Oh my goodness, dude. You guys get a room. No, Free Spirit's cute. I mean, whatever. You guys go do your thing. I mean, personality-wise, I'm not talking about. I don't know what somebody thinks is cute physically, but personality-wise. So, yeah, whatever. Get a room. Yes, I should watch it. Okay. Oh, she's a vampire? I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't address it, although I'll quickly say there may really be vampires. I don't know. There is some things that appear to be somewhat vampirish-like. I will confidently say that. I don't know what they're really about, or what attributes they have, or how close they are to Hollywood. I don't know. There's something that has some of those attributes that's real, though, for sure. Or there are some kind of otherworldly beings that portray themselves in that way. I don't know. But I'll just leave it at there are some very credible people who've had experiences with what appear to be vampire-like creatures, who I believe that what they're reporting is a very close semblance of the truth of what happened to them. I'll just leave it at that. And I don't know what the actual answer to it all is, but so yeah, so I should watch that. You work at a blood bank. So do you snack on at work? Which is your favorite? I can't remember my blood type. Which is your favorite blood type? You don't want to suck my blood though. I've got scleroderma, dermafibrosis. You'd likely get it yourself because there's antibodies in your blood when you have autoimmune disorder. Just the same as if you have diabetes or whatever. They also have antibodies in their blood, which at least hypothetically could be transmitted to someone else, I guess. Be positive. You don't really work at a blood bank, do you? I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with that. That's a life-saving business. Do you guys pay people for their donations, or do you just take free donations, or what? I'll tell you something that you might appreciate, Free Spirit. I was on the operating table for almost 7 days straight. And I got a and then after that, I had a cytokine storm, and it lasted for like 3 or 4 days, which I know, why am I not unalived? Well, I know very few people who've survived that. And in order to survive it, I received a record amount of blood product donations of any patient that's ever been cared for by in the history of Kaiser by like 20 times, they said. And I think they gave me Hep C because I certainly didn't have it going in there, but I ain't mad at them. Whatever they did, they made a valiant effort to get what they needed to save my life. If they would have given me, you know, the HIV, I wouldn't have been happy about that. But I would have been bummed about that, but I wouldn't have been mad at them if they had just done what they needed to do to save my life. And in a large way, I save my own life because I laid there like on the thread of existence for a long time. And they were catching the blood in buckets underneath me, 5-gallon buckets. It was coming out of my eyeballs, my ear, my surgical wound, practically my skin, they said. Because I wasn't making any platelets, which is what happens when you have a cytokine storm, or one of the things that can happen. They've never seen somebody who was in a cytokine storm last that long, not there. I don't know if it may have happened to other places, but they had never seen it. And they'd never seen anybody never seen anybody who started to have an organ failure, which when that happens, it usually starts with the heart fibrillating, and that's begins the domino effect of organ failure, shutdown. That's never been stopped medically that they know of. That's never been done. There is a shot that they could have given me that clots your blood, but it has like a 95 or 97% chance of stroking you out. And they asked my mom several times if she wanted to do that, and they thought that I was going to go. And she said no, thank goodness. Because she said, I already talked to him and he wouldn't want to live that way, which is true. PSA, plasma donated at a plasma center doesn't get transfused, but when you get paid for a donation, it's not SBA approved for transfusion, so it goes to cosmetics and pharmaceutical companies? What? Oh my God. I didn't know that. Well, they keep that secret they keep a lid on that, don't they? Because I've known a lot of people that have donated at those places, and I think a lot of them were under the impression that they were donating it to a cause of like saving lives or something. Most people think their plasma gets transfused when they get paid for only way not will get transfused is if you donate it at the kind of place I work at. Okay, so there are some. Well, that still startled me to find out. Well, wherever they got my donations from, that could be why I ended up with a sketchy bit of blood, because they were probably just, they might have been donating themselves. I don't know. There was some kind of half secretive thing that had gone on with a bunch of them. It was weird because people were coming by and introducing themselves to me after I woke up from the coma for like a month later. I don't know, not that long later, but a few weeks. And yeah, long enough for me to have to learn to walk again. So I don't know exactly how long I was out for, but people were coming by and introducing themselves to me, both because they didn't believe that I'd survived. They had to see it for themselves. And then they were surprised that if I did survive, that I didn't have brain damage. And then they were just surprised that I was a nice guy, because they'd been told a bunch of bullshit by my father. And so many of them were like, "You're nothing like what I expected you to be, blah, 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 blah." Like, he was trying to get me killed. Anyways, I don't want to talk about that. But whatever. Yeah, so that whatever methods that they used to get me that donation, I'm not mad at them. Is my bottom line. She just wants to educate. What's your degree? She's a 6th-degree black belt, and if you try to make the moves on her, she's gonna wow you in jewels. You will have inverted family jewels, KKR, if you even try it. Try to make a maneuver. But I love my job, and I love what I do, and love taking care of others. That's cool. That's very cool. Okay, so it looks like it's just the 3 of us now. More than time for me to end this here. I've worked up quite a sweat walking around today. I didn't walk particularly quickly, but I walked a good distance. All right, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and end this then. KKR has cautioned me to... Oh my goodness. Yeah, you guys go get a room. I'm going to back out and leave you to it. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good one, and I will probably see you tomorrow. And you can thank anybody who's actually stuck with me and enjoyed any of this. You can thank KKR, because he called me and got me up off my bum and being all bummed out and depressed, which I don't do that often at all, but I was today, and he got me up, and I was the other day too, for some reason, when I was about to stream. So anyways, you can thank him, and I'll probably be on tomorrow, because even if I don't want to, he'll make me. All right, everybody have a good one. Sleep tight. Good to see you again there. Free Spirit, Mr. Osgood, KKR, and anybody else who's ninja watching. Good night.